Cannabis. Is it a spiritual gateway, an introduction to altered states of consciousness? Or is it a spiritual gatekeeper that hinders any true development of the spirit? Is it one of nature's greatest aids, outside of the medicinal benefits, but in terms of its usage in personal development? Or is it just another road towards personal destruction? I think when we're talking about any substance that we ingest, there's always that element of experiential subjectivity, which makes it hard in the public discourse to arrive at some truth or objectivity. We could say coffee over here makes a large group of people feel like it's a very peaceful way to unwind, that it's a nootropic, a cognitive enhancer, it helps them focus but at the same time relax. And then on the other end you have a group of people that say, all I can experience is my heart racing, anxiousness, and I fucking hate the taste. With alcohol, you can have someone whose inhibitions are lowered and they become more of an expressive, authentic, loving and jolly sense of themselves because of the inhibitions being lowered. And then you have another group of people, when their inhibitions are lowered, they become vile cunts. Even down to food. If you said nuts and legumes for a group of people would be fantastic source of protein and fats, but another group, their throat will close up and they may die. So polarity exists, and it doesn't make it easier when in the public consciousness there's always conflicting polarization, right? There's a study that will say cannabis is the next best thing for X, Y, and Z.
There's not a shred of evidence that marijuana is any worse than nicotine or alcohol.
And then you'll have a medical doctor say, well, I'll see you in 10 years because there's also a new study that says it's linked to schizophrenia. And it doesn't help the average person from identifying the fine line between using something that aids them and being used by something that hinders them. Oldest forms of religious or spiritual thinking is the idea of animism. On some level, everything has a spirit or an energy or a consciousness attached to it. And we kind of see this with food when we look at someone that's having a quote-unquote unhealthy diet or lifestyle, is they're probably not eating many foods that are alive or living foods. Instead, they're more processed and altered when it comes on arriving on their plate. The idea that even alcohol to some regard is alive, spirits, you can kind of see how those trains of thoughts connect. Now, it's no different with cannabis. With cannabis, you have the two species of the plants with the male and female genders. And ironically, the characteristics of them kind of mirror us as human beings and the difference between the masculine and feminine. One plant is very sturdy and has sacs and is very robust for building materials and all types of fibrous stuff. And another one yields these really big buds that are psychoactive. It's alive. So ingesting this type of substance is bringing in an energy into our own consciousness. And are we respected in a way by setting an intention? Back ancestrally, from the Scythians, the Chinese, the different cultures who would use it almost as a sacrament in ritual. When does it go from being a ritual, something that has intention, into a routine or something that becomes habit? When you look at the average cliche of a stoner, the feminine energy for young men pulls them in purely because they want the feminine energy, the relaxation, the excitement of their senses. They want the change potentially in consciousness or the fluidity of their mind and their thought processes and thought forms. You can have all of these aforementioned positives without the craziness and the commitment and the complexity of another human being. So Maryjane, in theory, for a lot of young men, become a replacement girlfriend. The cliche of the stoner is the man-child that's mothered by the nurturing feminine energy of the cannabis plant until the point where they almost become in a relationship together, in a very difficult and sometimes toxic relationship, which is again subjective. Truly only you as an individual, if you are using any substance, will know that relationship to be true or not. But some of them use it as a replacement lover and almost become possessive as us men and protective as us men do around the relationship. No longer really care about the intention, and it's become more of a routine. And just like any relationship, after time, if the necessary work isn't being put in, there becomes a loss of respect for both individuals. Maryjane will be quite happy for you to sit with her on a sofa and do nothing all day. She doesn't want you to go anywhere else, just as you don't want to go anywhere else. And after a while, you can see how sustained use to it would cause schizophrenic kind of outcomes as a bit of an effect to the cause, because if you're using something that's that powerful only to placate feelings or addressing wider things inside of your life, then there's only a time when you're going to have to pay the piper a little bit. And if you stop respecting her, she will stop respecting you. Can you blame the substance? I don't think you can ever blame a substance for it. It's always the individual and their intentions going into it. And then obviously whether the systems inside of their body, whether that's hereditary, whether that's physiologically speaking, are able to process it in the same way. For a lot of lads, it takes away, again, a bit like pornography, but completely different, because I do feel there is some merit to cannabis use as a sacrament and as something with intention, but it's another one of those snares designed to catch a lot of men into it. With intention being set, it's clear to see how cannabis can be really good and useful for psychological interventions as well as spiritual journeys, for its ability to take away the fine line between the subconscious and the conscious mind. And regardless if you see it as something that is just external that you ingest, anything in our life does require some form of intention set behind it, because it puts you in control of it. And then when we're out of control in the form of addictive behaviour, in essence, that's when there's not much intention set behind it, and unfortunately it's either become habitual or it's become a need. So you can't blame Maryjane, but you can certainly blame the way that you treat her, and ultimately the way that she's going to treat you.
You introduce